Please, please buy some merch so I can afford silicone Brazilian butt implants. Thanks, I love you. So, here's what you came to see. These are the solution I arrived at for the problem of how to attach the tubes to the gate valves. These are going to replace this part. It's about an inch longer, see, than I would like it to be. That's not too much of a compromise, but it's removable. I can just remove the screws and swap back to these ones if my parts guy ever does come through with the fitting, whatever this is called, of the correct diameter for this threaded connector. So it's reversible. This is plan B. I can still go back to plan A if that pans out, and it will be a neater, more compact solution. These were expensive as fuck, because these are actually 3 fittings. It's this part in here, and then this part which goes into this adapter. And all this shit together was $30 fucking dollars. So ideally, in order to keep costs down, since I'm going to be building 8 of these at some point, I would like to identify a source of the correct fittings for these things. So I mean, if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't use this diameter in the first place. If I had used a 1.5 inch, then I could just use this directly on here, and it would just work. I went with larger diameter because I wanted the hamsters to have more room. This is kind of a tight fit. A Roborovsky can squeeze through there without too much trouble. The problem is that they need to be able to go past each other. I think they may still be able to. Watch this. That's the other issue. Is this one's... They only had one of this length and one of this length. They did not have 2 of either length. And this one is really as long as it needs to be in order to have a tight seal, even if you bend the tube. This one's not. If you bend this just pops off. So I still need to make a trip back to the RV parts store after having them special order one of these. I'll call them about that tomorrow. This should be good enough to do an in-water test, though, in the meantime. What else? I think if I put... see how it's wide this way and narrow this way? I think if I put it sideways, the hamsters should be able to go around each other this way. But then again, if I put it sideways, then the low points where water will collect are over here and over here. And that's suboptimal for draining. It would be better to have it this way so the water pools down here, and I only need to have 2 holes. So I'm still undecided about what to do about that. This is really just a test tube. The one that I wind up using will have to be longer than that, I think, because this is not really flexible enough to go down from here down to where the smaller habitat is. So I either need at some point to buy 2 45-degree elbow connectors, ideally transparent, or I need to get a heat gun and melt this a little bit so I can get a sort of S serpentine curve from it. But anyways, let's swap these off for the time being, replace them with these fittings, and just go with that for now. It works. That's the important thing. I've spent, 3 months on this fucking tube problem, and I'm done with it. I'm ready to have a solution, even if it's a little bit bulkier. I don't need to be so much of a perfectionist, I think, that it holds the project back by that long. I mean, that's kind of in my nature. It's kind of comes with the territory. Spurgs are perfectionists. I don't know if you follow Ulalilia or Platform Masters, but he's been working on that fucking game for more than 12 years, 13, 14 years now, just perfecting like minute details of the parallax scrolling backgrounds. So that's a bad habit we have, but you know what? That's how I am, and you didn't abort me in time, so you gotta love me how I am. Which side does that go on? That's not the one, this is. Should put that on a fucking t-shirt. Assuming I could find anybody to sell it. No. This one? No. Really? What about this one? Too small. I could have sworn I had the right one at some point. That one works. This is about the same size, isn't it? So I need one smaller than this, but that's this one. There we go. Okay. It'll be a relief just to have a solution in place that works, even if it's not the one that I wanted. And you know what? We can still hold out hope. There's still hope that the parts guy will find the fitting for this, which will be a quality of life improvement for the hamsters. They'll have a little bit more elbow room when going from module to module. Even if I can't bend this one, by the way, I think I'll still have use for it. I think what I want to do is build a second one of the smaller of the two habitats, just so I have two habitats I can connect in the aquarium that both fit in the aquarium, that connect with the tube, so you have something to watch. So you can see hamsters moving from habitat to habitat through tunnels, underwater, on a live stream in the near future, instead of having to wait months and months and months for this thing to be ready. So that's something to look forward to. Besides, of course, the sweet release of death. Yeah, and again, if I had known this was going to be the issue that it turned out to be, I would have based all of this on 1.5-inch valves. I wish I could go back in time and do that. But, you know, you go to colonize the lake bed with the habitats you have, not the ones you want. That's how the saying goes. That's how the ancient, time-honored saying goes, I believe. Hold on. Wait a minute. Is there a seal in here? There's not. There's not a seal in here. Haha. I was almost the big dummy man. The big sexy dummy man. Incidentally, if you haven't checked it out, I've begun posting articles about Antarctic habitats, which are at least as fascinating to me as the underwater ones, because it's a different set of engineering problems, but it's equally cozy. And if you can imagine yourself in an Antarctic city with thickly insulated walls and giant geodesic space-age structures, sipping hot cocoa, playing your Nintendo or whatever, looking out through those windows at the horrible snowstorm, bajillion degrees below zero, or when the weather's nicer, looking at, I forget, is it penguins or polar bears that live? I think it's penguins. Looking at live at the South Pole, you can see penguins, you can see the northern lights, or not, they wouldn't be the northern lights, they would be, I guess, the southern lights? Aurora Borealis, the same thing that fucking Skinner had, localized to his kitchen. But he would not let Super Nintendo Chalmers see it, because Chalmers is a buster slut. He does not deserve to gaze upon such majesty as that. I'm also doing this in normal colored light because I prefer red tinted light for my eyes, but you guys prefer to be able to see what's going on. And one of those things outweighs the other. You know who I'd really like to make a habitat for? Is Ricky Berwick. You know Ricky? On Twitter? Can you imagine him just scurrying about in his own luxurious undersea mansion? And the fact that he's a petite fellow would make it cheaper, because you don't need as much air-filled volume, and he crawls anyway to get around, so you could have smaller connecting tunnels. And I mean that in all respect. He's one of my favorite online entertainers. I just am pleased by the concept of him having his own underwater palace to, you know, to take the hot ladies back to when he's done living his lifestyle of the dapper young man about town. So that's that. I'm really disappointed that I fucking, even after all these trips, there's still something I have to go back there to replace. But I'm 99% of the way there. As soon as I get another one of these, we'll have a solution that's good enough. This one's not good enough because if it bends at all, you know, this could come out. So it's 99% of the way there. Other than that, here it is attached. You're underwater. You want to connect two of these. Get the gate valve's closed. You come up here with your tunnel. Get the threads aligned first thing. Make sure that there's an O-ring in here. Oh, there isn't, is there? No, this one goes to here. This one's fine. I'm going to need to attach these O-rings. I may as well film that too. Go like that until you have a nice, tight seal. Don't take that out of context. I don't mean like a tight. This is not a furry channel. Then you connect the other end to the other habitat over here in the same fashion. And once you've done that, you have a nice airtight connection, and you can move the rubber band to expose the hole I'm going to drill when I'm ready to do that on this one. And you undergo the purging process, which now this is finally airtight enough that should work, unlike last time I attempted this with a much less professional looking solution. This one will work. It's just a little bit thicker here with 2 C's than I wanted it to be, and that bothers me. That still bothers me. This could be more compact if I had chosen my parts more carefully. But that's still on the table. Again, I just have to keep telling myself that solution is still possible. I just have to move ahead anyway with Plan B and hope that Plan A is still feasible at some point in the future. Anyway, now I'm going to try to permanently fix these O-rings because these have to stay in there in order for the seal to be as watertight as I want it to be. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze some of this silicone onto this Q-tip. I sound like a demented Bob Ross. We're going to put it in a thin layer because it's going to be pressed flat. It's going to be squeezed all the way flat against the plastic. All the way around here, just the smallest amount. It doesn't take a lot to get a watertight seal, especially when you're screwing it tight anyways. It looks not great, but good enough. And god damn it, that's my work ethic. It's good at not. I'm kidding. I wish it was. This shit would get done a lot faster. Then again, lives are on the line, so being obsessive about that shit is not a bad quality. Then you just slip it into here. And this still rotates freely, so that's not an issue. But this is going to take a fuckload of time to dry and fully cure. That's just how silicone works. And I know I'm not even going to use this, ultimately. I'm going to be getting another one of these. But this, you know, I'm having them order it. So it's going to be days, a week, before they get this one. I want to be able to use this one to test the water tightness and the purging solution in the water before then. So until that time, I'm going to keep using that one. I'm going to seal this one now. And it's important to have the O-ring. The O-ring really makes the seal complete. It's Spread some of that gross demon semen on there. Looks really funky. Don't use this as lube. Don't do that. Also, I learned today, do not make a joke when other people are talking to each other. You're not welcome, or at least I'm not. This woman was apparently a mother of 4, and she was just joking and gabbing with the clerk. And she says, oh, I wish my kids, could be turned off. And I said, well, they can, but only once. And I thought they would laugh. They didn't laugh. They just looked at me. That's a bad feel, man. I guess my comedic stylings are not always welcome. It's a tough crowd. It's a tough crowd. Not everybody makes it as a comedian their first try. And there's reseated a little bit so it spins easier. There's that. Now I just got to let this sit and cure. Not the Cure. Not like the band. Don't listen to the Cure. Friends don't let friends listen to the Cure. That should be the moral of today's episode. Ha ha! Now this one. So the inspiration to say fuck it and find some solution in the near term was just people complaining that they hadn't seen enough. Oftentimes when I talk about this, you guys defend me, and I appreciate that. But I also like to have my finger on the pulse of what you guys want. So I think both kinds of comments have their place. There's basically people saying, you get over $1,000 a month, but it's taking you this long to make a bunch of trips to Lowe's, and you haven't made any progress. Well, I have made progress. I posted a lot of videos recently about stuff I've done that's just not related to the tube problem. The problem is everybody is hyper-focused on the tube problem, and that's the only progress they really care about, which is understandable. But that's not to say they're not doing anything. I like the dynamo wheel, setting up the webcam live stream of the hamster cage by popular demand, the mount for the little display. Lots of little things that I've been doing. But if you want big progress, I'm right there with you. I'm not a patient man to begin with. I was just waiting on somebody else to solve my problem, which is never a good strategy. Enough of that. We're going to move ahead one way or the other. The other thing is, I know it sounds like a lot, but I think they're forgetting that rent is not free. I rent. I don't own. I don't live with my parents. I kind of wish I did. I mean, shit. It was a big deal for me to move out because, people on the spectrum typically don't. It's often so overwhelming, just all the little shit you have to stay on top of in order to live on your own, that they just don't move out. And they basically live with their parents until their parents die and they can't anymore, which is a depressing outcome. I'm really thankful. I'm one of the few that made it just by a bunch of different plans. This is one of them that I didn't expect to pan out. I never thought monetizing underwater hamster habitats in any way, shape, or form would be possible. But crypto, I did well with crypto. I did well with my paid blogging stuff. Now I've got the YouTube, which is monetized but makes fuck all. I've got the merch. I've got Twitch that I'm working on. I haven't been streaming lately just because the other day was a late Mother's Day. We always wait in my family a day or two so that there's not crowds that we have to contend with. I have other shit going on in my life. That's the other thing I feel like onlookers are not aware of, because the only part of my life you see is what's on your screen, the videos I upload, and you can easily get the impression that all I have to do is work on this project. But despite the fact that I don't have to do food delivery for work anymore, I do other things that I'm trying to cultivate, like with writing and shit, in order to have a larger portion of my income come from those things, so I don't depend so heavily on Patreon, which many of you pointed out to me is not a wise long-term solution. Is there? No, there's not a seal in there. So I have other shit in my life that where I'm having to work pretty hard in order to build a following on these other platforms, so that someday I can have a couple of reliable income streams that are redundant, so that I don't get stuck in a situation where I piss off the wrong person and they deplatform me, which is increasingly a hazard we have to live with in this day and age. But by distributing my income sources like that, it's less of an issue, because if they eliminate one of them, they think they've got me, but I've got backups for my backups for my backups, which, you know, is kind of what I'm all about with my fucking bug out car and all the gear and shit that I have for that, and the solar panels and whatnot. When you get born with the deck stacked against you, you have kind of a naturally self-justifying interest in safeguarding yourself against the worst outcomes. Because I've seen what can happen. It's not a lot of happy stories. 80% of us are unemployed and just never are able to hold down any kind of work. So if we can't figure out something uniquely suited to our talents, like I'm doing right now, we just wind up either living off of our parents or off of government autism bucks, which I could partake of but don't, because I really wanted to, you know, get to the point where I'm self-supporting in some fashion and can have that dignity. I mean, also there's women, you know. I date, almost unbelievably, I do. There's women out there who are really interested in weird guys, and they kind of serially collect them, one after the other, one at a time if you're lucky. So there's a market, and I'm not about to bring women home to, you know, mother's basement. That's not, it just isn't done. But it's amazing how much it costs to not do that. It's amazing how much of your income has to go into having someplace else to bring women back to you, just so that you can pursue the universal human drive of, you know, companionship and reciprocal, you know, emotions and all that good shit that releases the dopamine and the serotonin and whatnot. So I'm there. I'm there, just barely. What I make right now covers all my expenses, and a little more for hamster stuff, but that's it. And you guys have been wonderful. I adore you guys, and I can't thank you enough. And there's nothing I can really do to make up for it except entertain you as best I can. It dipped all the way down to 1,200 last month. It always dips down at the end of the month, but I just mentioned it once in passing, and sure enough, you guys stepped up to the plate, and now it's back up to 1,230. 1,235, I think. That's still not back up to where it was, but it just means a lot to me that I just mentioned that, and you guys immediately notice and you leap to do something about it. It feels like a very convincing illusion of the popularity that I never had as a wee hamster lad. Then again, don't feel bad for me when I say that either, because I never really wanted to interact with other people. I spent a lot of time on the playground just hanging out in the treehouse that they had set up there, playing Kirby's Adventure on my Game Boy Pocket, and that's how I liked it. I never felt excluded, because nobody had really actively excluded me. I had self-selected. I'm going to loosen that so I don't squash the rubber washers too much. I'm a weird guy. We're weird people. We don't really fit in to the existing sort of honeycomb matrix of cubicles and pre-prepared positions that assume everybody is more or less the same in terms of their capacity to learn and remember things and stay on top of more than one task at a time. But anyway, that's the second valve. And what I was talking about earlier, which I'm excited about, is I have plans, big plans, to build a second one of these and retrieve my aquarium from storage so that I have a test tank. And I can put this one in there at least, and then have live streaming hamsters in the near term. And then in the medium term, I can build another one of these because they're relatively cheap to build compared to these big ones. And I can have two of these in the same aquarium because this one, the big one, will not fit in the aquarium. I can have two of these connected by tunnels. And you can watch hamsters living in habitats underwater, going through tunnels. And it will be the coolest fucking thing that you ever saw, or I'll eat my own face. I don't know, man. It'll work. It's just, this could have been here. I'm losing like an inch. Or rather, there's an inch of extra bulk that doesn't need to be there. It might not sound like a big difference, but, you know, you guys out there know what a big difference an inch can make. Left it open a crack for air. Is he doing it? Ah. It's not as cramped as I worried about it being. Just gonna hang out in that entrance, are you? Oh, you did to Pharaoh. Look at them when they clean themselves. It's so cute. Find the tube. I got some litter in here accidentally when I emptied out the container that I transported them in. If this was an IQ test, I think we have our answer as to which one's a little bit slower than the other. You get nothing out of that, that's empty. One of these days. There you go. Fucking finally. Alright, so that's confirmation that they can comfortably use the tubes despite the reduced diameter. I worried that they'd be just smooshing their way through there, but it doesn't look like it. It also doesn't look like they can get past each other. That's not a good thing. And again, these two are pretty acclimated to each other by now. I've never caught them fighting after that one time. I think they just, it's like prison. They had to establish who was going to be in charge. They can turn around in the tube. That's good. I still got to replace this. I think I'm going to do that today. Or at least talk to them about ordering a new one. I don't think they have one in stock. This is exciting though. This is... This is the solution that's going to work. Unfortunately, it's not as flexible as I want it to be. I might need some elbow joints because right now it puts too much strain on here. If I try to put this on the ground, this does not want to bend. So I have it propped up with the Minecraft books, which I have not read, but I had to buy when I saw them. I'm sure that those are literary masterpieces beyond compare, which future historians will take great pains to preserve in their archives. Don't you fuck with that. Don't you fuck with... There's nothing under there for you. That's that little hamster butt. This would be cool to see underwater. This is vindicating. I'm never going to give up on getting the correct fittings for these things, though. Because that would be even better. And I don't want to have to spend as much as I spent on all these fittings for every habitat. And I'm also not going to use a 1.5 inch valve on the other side of this thing, because then it won't match, and it has to match. It's bothering me enough that there's extra bulk there doesn't need to be. I'm not going to use mismatched valves. That's good. They have separate rooms they can go to. It's kind of important. And they're going to have separate floors too, which they can go to in the Mega Hab as soon as I either can afford a 3D printer or somebody with a 3D printer comes through with that platform. That's probably enough footage. Are you not entertained? They finally found Mega Hab again. Jade was just camped out in the tube and was fighting Jim every time he tried to get through there. They don't bite each other anymore, but they sort of... You'll see. They do that. It's like, you what, mate? Yeah, Jade just does not let him go through the tunnel. That's an argument, I think, for the larger diameter tunnels. If one of them just decides to camp out in there and the other can't get between modules. Well, if Jade specifically decides to camp out in there, Jim can't get between modules because she doesn't want to move. Like this. I haven't drilled the holes yet. I don't know how long this is going to be. If I can't bend it, I may as well make it shorter just so it takes less time to purge. In which case, the colony will be a straight line of habitats instead of a ring. But I can probably find a elbow fitting that's perhaps 45 degrees, which would solve that problem. Is it me or is this mesmerizing to watch? This is going to be even cooler when it's underwater. I wish I could fit this in the aquarium. Maybe I can. I think I might just have to cut off the top part of it. There they go again. You shall not pass! This is exciting. I've solved 99% of the issue. I just need another one of these to replace this end with, and then I have a tubing system that's not as compact as I wanted it to be, but that works. You're going to hear me bitch and moan about that a lot more in the future. At least until I find the correct fitting for this one, and then I can just refit it. And they'll hopefully be able to get past each other without having slap fights. Little hamster slap fights. Tubes. Wouldn't be a proper episode without a Home Depot parking lot video. Picked up a submersible pump and tubes. Can you guess what they're for? Wrong. They're for clearing the aquarium of the water that's already in there. I've been over once to bleach it and left it sitting. That should clear up all the algae and kill everything that's in there. Now I just got to pump all the water out and see if it fits in the back of my car. There's the pump going. There it is draining. Oh, fuck, I'm exhausted. There's the aquarium. And there's the gravel. A blank canvas. Endless possibilities. Well, really only one possibility, underwater hamsters. I'm not going to transport this to the house just yet, and the reason for that is complicated. Basically, my most recent roomie skipped town the other night without warning. I just woke up and he and his shit were gone. There's a note that said he had to go back to his home state and care for his elderly parents. The problem is he didn't give 30 days notice. He's all paid up on his utilities, but he's going to owe another month worth of rent because he didn't give that notice, and I guess somehow he wasn't aware of that. A lot of people want to rent for like 1 month. Not a lot of people want to rent to those people because they want stability and they want a reliable roommate to split costs with, or if they're a landlord or landlady, they want to not have to do the paperwork to process new tenants all the time. So those people, I guess, have to lie about their intentions in order to get accepted onto a lease, and I can empathize with that, but boy, has it put me in a difficult situation. It puts my landlady in a difficult situation too, and she's irritated with me as if I've done something wrong. This is like the second or third time this has happened, and she blames me. I guess I'm not that great a judge of character. I'm not good at telling when people are lying. So there's something to that, but she's punishing me for it by adding a new fee, which she's allowed to do as long as she gives me 30 months notice, since I'm doing month to month, and she's jacking up my rent as compensation for dealing with the hassle, as though it's something I did deliberately. It's shitty to be punished for other people's wrongdoing, but I can't really argue with her. She has absolute power, more or less. I can't really afford almost any rent increase. Even if I could, though, on principle, do I really want to reward that sort of thing and give her the idea that she can keep increasing rent? I think she heard through the grapevine that I was making money on Patreon and figured, well, that's my money now. You know, he doesn't work for that, so why don't I just take that from him and squeeze him dry for every drop of blood that's in that rock? So that's the situation, and because of that, I don't really know for sure whether or not I'm going to be moving. I had bad credit due to student loans when I initially moved in, and it was a godsend to be able to move in anyway, because the landlady was the mother of my girlfriend at the time, and that let me get past that barrier. But I've been paying my rent perfectly on time every month for a year, which should have improved that and will give me references I need if I'm going to move into some other place. And there are also better deals to be had on rent now. Rent has been coming down gradually as they have realized that they're driving people out onto the street because you can't get blood from a stone. And no matter how much they want a slice of that real estate pie, people can only pay so much, I guess. There's also been a lot of regulations going into effect that involve rent freezes. So there's much better deals out there than there were when I initially was looking for a place across the river. A lot of them are a couple $100 less than I'm paying now. And these are still 2 or 3 bedroom places. So almost any of these that I choose, I'd be saving money versus what I'm paying at the moment. So I'm looking real hard at that possibility and scratching my head. So it doesn't really make sense to move the aquarium now because I'm just going to be storing it. I'm not going to try to fill it with water because then that's going to create a huge hassle if I want to move again in the near term. That doesn't really make sense to do until I know for sure whether I'm going to move or not. So all the work is done of emptying out the aquarium, washing it out as much as I possibly can. A lot of the stains are just in there. They disappear when it's full of water, though. A lot of those scuff marks on the side. And that's all done. This is ready to go as soon as I know for sure what my long-term living situation is going to be. I don't have to worry about housing for the summer because, as per the usual tradition in my family, we're going to go and stay at the lake cabin on Lake Vermilion in Minnesota, probably for the entirety of the summer. So this would be a good time for me to move out, stash my stuff in a storage unit for maybe like $200 a month, and then just enjoy my vacation and use that time to figure out where I'm going to move into at the end of it. That's something I'm eyeballing. But you can expect, absolutely can expect this to be used for Hampture sooner rather than later, as soon as I get all this shit figured out. I didn't want this to happen, but that guy skipping out on me and my landlady getting pissed at me, I couldn't have predicted that, and it's created a lot of hardship that I don't appreciate. But when I do use this, as you can see, this is not really enough space to drop MegaHab in. This is a permanent lid. It's just melted on there. So I would need to buy a cutting tool of some kind to cut out as much of this as I can while still being able to put the lid on there and cover most of it. And that only then will I be able to drop MegaHab into there, and probably the tip of the dome will be no more than an inch or two from the surface of the water, but it will still be just deep enough that I can use this for in-water testing, for testing tank. So that's that. But there's also this smaller aquarium that my dear old dad gave me. He had it lying around with a bunch of others that he planned to put together into an experimental aquaponics setup. Like father, like son. He figured he could spare one if it would turn out to be easier for live streaming just the smaller habitat by itself. And this looks like it has exactly enough room to have the smaller habitat in it without being absurdly cramped. That would let me get up and running with an underwater hamster live stream much sooner than I otherwise could if I had to wait for the larger aquarium. So I'm going to at least take this home and see if the smaller habitat fits. And if so, that's good news. You'll get to see the smaller habitat submerged with hamsters living in it. Probably within the next week. Well, fuck, it just barely doesn't fit. Hello, cat. The handle for the gate valve sticks out just far enough that it doesn't fit in this aquarium. Still, I wonder if there's not something else that I can use it for. Cat, seriously. Yes. They're just exactly long enough. They can land and sit flush on the ground. And there's just enough room for the hamster cockpit underneath. This means that we're basically go for launch. I can drill some air holes in this, and as long as I'm comfortable with that rubber band, I might want to reinforce that with a second one or something just to make absolutely sure. I could fly this shit tomorrow. It'll definitely be on next week's video. And also there's a kit online if you want to. It's just 4 styrofoam balls. You can put styrofoam balls on the tips of these and land it on water. But I don't think I'm going to do that because it's not as stable. There's a different add-on you can buy that gives it like long foam pontoons. It's not styrofoam, it's the stuff that pool noodles are made out of. So I trust that more to be stable on water, because if it flips over, it's going to sink, and there's going to be a hamster stuck in there. So you don't want to just buy whatever when it's fucking life critical. But this is exciting. It's exciting, man. HamsterCopter is a go. Bonus comfy time footage. Because you know that I'm all about the comf. Not only is there a beautiful sunset, which is perfect for listening to Lauren, but there's also a light rain through which the light from the sunset can be filtered before it reaches my eye and distorted in a most aesthetically pleasing way. Premium comf. I've stopped here to use the charger so that I can make it home without having to burn any gas. It's a courtesy charger, so it's free. There's still little perks like that here and there. That's how they get you. There's so many fucking Teslas on the other side of that car, though. Makes me sick and envious. I was just in a Tesla store in the mall, sitting in a Model 3, just, ogling it, kind of groping it a little bit, tenderly caressing the upholstery. That is such a distant dream right now. I mean, who fucking knows? Gotta keep hope alive. I mean, but where I am right now, maybe having to move because of a irritable landlord lady, I guess, owing the tax man unpaid taxes, which I can't really afford. I guess I can't afford not to pay, really. And of course, my fucking student loan debt. Shit. Yeah, a Tesla is not happening. But how can I give up like that? I didn't give up on Hampture. There's still room for growth. I have not yet set up the live stream of an aquarium. That'll bring in new viewers. I've been looking at the possibility of 3D printed action figures. Well, not really action figures, just little figurines. I've got more interviews coming up on podcasts. So you know what, maybe. You gotta keep hope alive. If you don't keep hope alive, then what's the point? I mean, like, the human emotion of hope, not the woman in my basement. You have to keep her alive too, because it's really the easier of the two options versus having to figure out what you're going to do with the body. Haha, funny joke! Funny joke! Too much of my humor is murderous. I wonder what's going on with me emotionally. Just stress, anxiety, I think. I'm a tender dude in practice. I just like dark humor. Oh, you can see a little bit of the map, but I'm not afraid of being identified. My location identified rather that way because I'm way the fuck across town. I don't live anywhere around here. I'd turn the camera around, but get the fuck out of my shot. Keep walking. Keep walking. Get out of the shot. Trash person. Oh shit, he looked back. Whatever. So yeah, what happened in this video was exhausting. A lot of good stuff. What does the future hold? That depends in large part on whether or not I can bring in enough revenue. Maybe the answer is new merch. There's always a spike in merch sales when I introduce a new item. Then again, I gotta procure the art for a new item. Everybody wants mouse pads. Teespring doesn't sell mouse pads though. That's a fucking problem. Also stuffies, like a stuffed hamster. I was looking at that, and there's lighting fixture covers that are just transparent globes with a hole in the base. And that would be a really cheap source versus having to have them custom made in like a factory of like a bubble helmet. You could make the hamster at a factory that does like custom stuffed animals, and then just add the bubble helmet after the fact. 'Cause you gotta have the bubble helmet if there's going to be a stuffed hamster knot. It's like how you gotta have the tubes. And holy fuck am I relieved that I have a solution to the tubes. It's not perfect, and everybody's probably going to dogpile on me in the comments saying it's good enough, it's not a big deal, that it's not exactly what I wanted, but that's... I can't not be that way. And I'm still hoping, I still have my fingers crossed for the correct fittings. That would be perfect, because I can't exactly uncut the holes that are already in the habitat and make smaller diameter ones for a 1.5 inch gate valve. I don't know if I would, even if I could, because having the larger diameter as an option that I can adapt to means the choice of hamster breeds. It means that if I wanted to in the future, I could switch to using Syrian hamsters, because Megahab is big enough to comfortably accommodate Syrian hamsters, not refugees. We're not housing refugees underwater yet. Whether that's the future of asylum remains to be seen. I guess if you sought asylum in like Atlantis or some shit, and Poseidon had mercy on you, and then bought you free apartments, and then some of those local mermaids looked a little too good to you. Uh-oh. Shit, that got political unexpectedly. But yeah, near-term aquarium footage, if not a second webcam if I can afford it this month. I still have to find a replacement roommate. If I can't, then I have to pay the entirety of their rent out of pocket because my other roommate won't help with it. He says that his lease says, you know, $500, and that's the most that's all he's gonna pay no matter what. And the fact that the rest falls on me because the landlady demands to get the full amount is just my problem. That's the kind of stand-up guy he is. He's the one who threatened to beat the shit out of me because I left some, like 3 or 4 little beard hairs in the sink, and he's a germaphobe. I mean, fuck, you can turn on the sink, and the next time you use it, the hairs will go down the drain. I guess I could stand to be neater, though. But it's about compromise, and he doesn't really compromise on anything. This is not the channel where I complain about my life, though. It's not supposed to be. Twitch is going well. I finally started streaming again. I'm now 100% recovered. I still have a post-nasal drip going on, but that's been going on for like 6 years, and I just haven't done anything about it because I can't really afford healthcare. That's another thing where you can't really afford not to buy it, but I really am already strained thin, and I can't really ask for more from my fans because a lot of my fans are in worse shape than I am, and it makes me want to help them and talk them out of donating as much as they do. I've done that. I've sent messages being like, dude, one of them donates $40 a month, and one of them donates $100 a month, And I actually talked him down. He originally was donating $1,000 a month. I was like, did you really mean to do this? Maybe not the most financially wise decision I've made, but what the fuck good is an underwater hamster novelty next to the good of my fans having, you know, financial security? I'm not the only human on Earth. There are other people who need to make a living and pay rent. So that desire is kind of at odds with the desire to increase the Patreon. Get the fuck out of my shot. I stand in judgment of you tiny people. You look like ants from here. I shouldn't say that. I like ants. I wouldn't crush an ant. Ants are unassuming. They just go about their day and they don't have to be told twice what to do. They just do whatever's best for the colony. Frogs are also on my list of tiny bros in nature that are officially under my protection. They just, you know, they just do frog shit all day. They just sit on their lily pad and sing and hop around. Hop. That's beautiful to me. Yeah, frogs. 10 out of 10. Good job, nature. Make more shit like frogs and less platypus. I don't know what you were thinking there. No more platypus. So I was thinking while I was in the mall, why don't all malls in the country adopt a vaporwave aesthetic and play vaporwave music over the intercoms? You might be like, well, the time to jump on that bandwagon was 5 years ago. But at the same time, vaporwave is so inextricably linked with malls in particular that there's an opportunity for it to just become the default aesthetic musical genre, and you know, just the default mall decor around the country. And I think that would be goddamn delightful. I think that would get more people going to malls, especially people who were never exposed to vaporwave. Bless their uncultured hearts. Oh, I'm still bushed. I did a lot of fucking lifting today, getting that aquarium out and trying to wash those rocks, which didn't really work well. Every time I filled the bucket with water, there was algae. And I dumped it out, and then I filled it, and there was still algae. And I did that like 20 or 30 times. I just did not run out of algae. Holy shit, there was a lot of algae. So I left it sitting with an entire bottle of hydrogen peroxide dumped in there just to make 10,000% sure that every little cell of algae is dead. So that when I set up the aquarium, if I set it up in the house, my house, that the algae problem doesn't come back. Although I don't really plan to cultivate fish at all because I'm really bad at it, and I don't think it's responsible to raise an animal I know I'm bad at keeping alive. So I may as well just put hydrogen peroxide or bleach in there anyway. Isn't that what bleach is? My ignorance is showing. Nice to sit down and have a rest, though. Fuck. And there's still so much to do. In the coming months, I want to, after I do the hamster flight, that's going to happen really soon. I want to finish MegaHab, which is going to need a 3D printing solution of some kind, to do the second floor. I don't know if my 3D printing guy wants to do this for me any longer. In which case I'll have to find a replacement. I don't think so, though. I think he and I are on good terms. We're kind of frenemies. I should really have my own printer, but that requires me to have enough money not only to cover my expenses, but to save enough that I can afford an occasional couple $100 purchase. Yeah, that was parked in the other charging spot. You are a Prius. You're not an electric car. You're fooling nobody. Fucking Prius. It's like a reverse pussy magnet. It's like the other pole of the magnet that repels instead of attracts. Fuck what I know about that, though. I should stick to topics I know about. I don't know, around here there's a lot of hippie chicks who'd probably go for that. I know that I still got laid when I had an electric scooter. Wrap your head around that one. There were women willing to ride on the back of my electric scooter. I don't mean like a little I don't mean like the kind you stand on. I mean like a road scooter, but still. That's the gayest shit possible. Even compared to just gay porn. Or just like a 5-gallon bucket of sodomy. I don't know how you'd quantify that exactly. Quality content, people. So longer term than that, after I do the hamster flight, after I fix up Mega Hab, I would, if I get the big aquarium moved to the house and full and everything's working out the way I want it to, then I would like to build a second of the smaller type of habitat so that I can connect the two by tubes and have a video stream of two habitats in the same aquarium connected by a air-filled tunnel, so you can watch the hamsters go back and forth without having to wait for me to get the whole thing put in the lake, because that's still years off. In-water testing of MegaHab is not years off, but the actual implementation of multiple MegaHabs at the bottom of like a lake or pond, don't hold your breath for that. That's the long game. That's the end game of the entire Hampture program. But in the near term, if I play my cards right, you should be able to see a microcosm of that vision on Twitch, being streamed 24/7 for your viewing pleasure. God, what a weird concept that there should be pleasure in viewing hamsters going about their lives underwater in an aquarium. But here we are. I mean, I think the success of this project so far has proven that there's a appetite for that. God bless the internet, man. You can monetize damn near anything these days. I think that's all. Hope this has been a nice, chill ending for the video. For the 2 or 3 of you who watched this far, I guess I'm just padding it out. It's not really going to increase view time. I think most people will have tabbed out of this like 10 minutes ago. But for the rest of you, this is just cozy time with Hamster Father. Like I feel like I should read you a bedtime story or something, but I'm not going to, because that bitch can't prove you're mine. She wouldn't do the paternity test. I'm not paying. You can buy your own damn Lunchables.